So oftentimes when we are reluctant to make the calls, right? It is, I'm not saying 100% of the time, but oftentimes it is because we're thinking about ourselves rather than thinking about the listener or the person you're about to call. And what I mean by that is if you're thinking about yourself, then what happens is you're like, you kind of have this salesy mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And so that becomes kind of the overarching kind of theme of the conversation. And the listener can feel that, right? And it's kind of like when you walk into the, Nordstrom's or whatever, and you walk in, you're kind of close to the clothing rack or whatever, and the person says, "Hey, you want some help?" And you just immediately say, "Oh, no, just looking." Well, what are you talking about? You walked into this place. You clearly want some help. Don't you want to save some time? I'm sure you have some questions. Just tell me you want help and let me help you, right? But for some reason, that's not the way humans behave, right? They just want to back off and, kind of explore it a little bit themselves. So what my recommendation is think about each of these people and find out, what do you think, what kind of questions do you think they might have, or what have they been experiencing lately, right? Oftentimes we have to, or really 100% of the time, we have to make deposits before we make withdrawals. So this is a really good kind of point of clarity, okay? So if I were to walk into Bank of America today and say I'd like some money, they'll say, "What's your account number?" And I'll say, "I don't have an account here." And they'll say, "Do you know how this thing works?" Right? And that's not going to go anywhere, and I'm going to walk out without any money. But if I walk into Wells Fargo, then one of the clerk runs over to the coffee station to pour me a cup of coffee. The other clerk runs over to the desk and says, "Hey, Bill, you want money from 4405 today or 6785 today?" Right? Because I got a bunch of accounts there and I've made a bunch of deposits. So when I make deposits, then it's more natural to receive, right? To receive the value, right? So the question is, have you made enough deposits? Right? Or what can you do to make deposits? So perhaps you should approach it and say, hey, call number one is not about asking for referrals, right? Call number one is having a human to human conversation about how they and their family are doing, right? And the goal is to get data or update data. Okay, because the purpose of every single conversation is those two things: getting data and updating data. Okay, and what I mean by that is this is a very much a relationship-based business. Okay, if you have more data, then you'll be able to give more custom, individualized, customized attention and experience to your individual clients. Let me give you an example. Let's say I'm friendly with a couple and they just have a baby. And let's say I know that the wife is an Auburn fan or something. I can either give them a onesie or I could give them an Auburn onesie. You see what I'm saying? Right? If I know that their daughter just started Georgia Tech and I say, how's your daughter enjoying Georgia Tech? That feels good. If I say, hey, how's Melissa enjoying Georgia Tech? They're like, oh, Melissa's great. She's having so much fun, right? And they start opening up and smiling and having energy when they respond to you. But if you're like, hey, what's that daughter's name of yours? And isn't she around college age now? Or where is she going to school now? Like, it's a more of a detached conversation. So our goal is to gather as much data as we can, and when appropriate, ask for the introduction. By the way, referral is more of an insider term, right? That referral doesn't really resonate so well with the public. The public.
I didn't say, hey, can you give me a referral? This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody who's thinking about it? You know that I would do a good job because we've worked together through construction. But I see what you're saying. That takes a lot of pressure off too.
Yeah, exactly, because
Okay.
these calls should be pleasurable, right? And by the way, you don't want to train your person to every time they see your name pop up on the caller ID to expect to be asked for a favor, right? You want to train the person to, whenever they see your name pop up on the caller ID, say, oh my gosh, I'm about to have a 20-minute conversation about somebody who asked me a lot of questions and gives me a chance to talk. And because I like to talk, because I like to look good, this is going to be awesome, right? And just a quick note is I've found referrals happen a lot more seamlessly, and I have more control over the communication frequency when they help me. So rather than them, the listener, saying, oh, hey, here's George's contact information, or even worse, hey, I gave your card to my friend George, maybe he'll call you. He ain't ever gonna call. Okay, not happening, not happening. The much better way to do that would be to train your people on how to help you, right? Which is something like, hey, could you send us all a 3-way text introducing us? And then they're validating you and your work, right? So they would say, hey, Melanie, this is my neighbor, Stephen. Stephen and his wife have lived in this, Decatur for 3 years, and they're looking to move up to Johns Creek, right? Hey, Stephen, this is Melanie. We've worked together professionally for many years. She's so helpful. She's so nice. You're going to love working with her. Here's everyone's contact information. Then that is an endorsement, and it's up to you to take control of that communication. Without that endorsement, it's a lot harder, right? I used to have a flooring guy, for example, that would go in like he did counter or hardwoods and carpet and all that stuff, right? And every time he would go into somebody's home, his natural question as a business owner was, hey, what are you doing this for? Right? What's the purpose of you spending this money? Right? And many of them would say, hey, I'm getting ready to sell, right? Or I'm getting ready to rent it again, or something like that. To which he would look him dead in the face and say, hey, don't you be making any real estate decisions without talking to Bill first. Are you clear? And they're like, yeah. And he said, no, I'm serious. There's a lot of terrible agents out there. Do not make any real estate decisions without talking to Bill first. Are you clear? Right? And it really takes that intentionality to bring it out. Now, I'll give you a hint. If you want somebody to ask you about your business, you know what to do? Ask them about theirs, right? So if you want to bring up the topic of real estate, yet you're trying to figure out how to do it in an appropriate way without being salesy, ask them about their business or ask them about their work. And common courtesy would be like, hey, so Melanie, what are you up to these days? Are you still doing the painting? Are you still doing this or that or whatever? Say, no, in fact, I've launched a real estate business. I partnered with the #1 training organization in the world. I'm part of a 90-person productivity coaching group where I work with my peers and leaders every single day. I'm having so much fun. I'm able to help a lot of buyers and sellers. Let me ask you, do you have any questions about the real estate business that I could potentially, or the real estate industry that I could potentially answer for you? Right? Make that initial question about them rather than saying, hey, who do you know that wants to buy real estate, sell real estate, or invest in real estate that I could help today? See what I'm saying?
And I'd like to add in there that I'm listening to High Performance Habits by Brendan Bouchard, and high performance habit number 5 is developing influence. And you can actually go to the workbook. I would recommend that you listen to it, but high performance habit number 5 is to develop influence. And there's a lot of information on that. The influence model is on the website, or High Performance Habits website. So you can go there and see what he has to say, because it's pretty interesting.
What's his name again? It went in and out when you were speaking.
Brendan, Brendon, Burchard, Burchard.
One thing I'll give you an interesting, Greta, this is kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, is megacamp. And you never know when you're going to hear what you need to hear, and it can just change everything. So I remember this is probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was at a mega camp. I think it was in Orlando, maybe. And Chris Heller was the CEO at the time of Keller Williams. And he came in to speak to the young professionals group. And I was in the young professionals group at the time, right? And he was talking about opportunity. And he says, opportunity, first of all, Keller Williams, if you haven't figured this out, the politics of Keller Williams is production. You go sell a bunch of houses, you get known. You don't sell any houses, nobody knows who you are, right? So he says, if you want influence, right, then you need to do, or I'm sorry, he says, opportunity comes to people that have capital and influence. And by the way, capital is like 1% and influence is 99%. So if somebody were to offer you an opportunity, they are not necessarily looking for money, they're looking for influence, right? So if I get into business with you, how will my world change, right? So he then went on to say, how do you get influence, right? Somebody says, well, how do you get influence, right? And he said, from a Keller Williams standpoint, he said, we look at what your involvement on the Agent Leadership Council has been and how you've taken advantage of the profit sharing opportunity, right? How were you influential in bringing people to the company, right? So that changed everything for me. I had already been on the ALC forever, but I said, well, hell, I want some opportunities, so I better go focus on profit share, right? So you never know when that moment is that you're going to hear what you need to hear in order to kind of shift your focus and shift your priority, right? And how do you get influence as a new agent? Let's say you go meet a lot of people, right? You could volunteer in your communities. You can meet some of the people that are, have some of the businesses in town, or some of the, the principal of the school or the Rotary Club or whatever, right? You meet the PTA presidents. You get influence because people know who you are and they know that you're a reputation, right? So you're being evaluated all the time. All the time. Okay. Okay. So Melanie, thank you for bringing that question up. That's just the first of many conversations we're going to have around this. Ultimately, look to say how many have I earned the right to bring up real estate, right? And if you believe you've earned the right, then it's not salesy, right? Okay. I want to talk about this concept that we've talked about a little bit in the past on the lifetime value of a client. Has anyone done this exercise before? Anyone? Okay. I thought I was going to have an extra couple of moments. Can you guys just hang on? Talk amongst yourself. Candace, give them a nugget or two while I go and get my my board thing, okay?
Yeah, so I just posted the high performance habits, the influence model. It's hyper habits tools is what you want to look for. But it's an excellent book. And one of the things that he's talking about, it was interesting because he said when they identify the traits of an influencer, surprisingly, being giving and being creative are not two traits of an influencer. People to be the best they can be. They also are not, my internet, I hope I'm not frozen. My internet it looks unstable, but they challenge people to be the best they can be, and they teach them how to think. So it's relating to what Bill said about teaching people how to recommend us to people. We have to work on that, and it's for me a fairly uncomfortable thing, but I live in a space of being uncomfortable because I am on a path of learning and growing. So if anybody else wants to join me in that space of uncomfortability and do the things that will make us better humans, help us to help other people, I'm glad to share whatever I know and take some action on it. You back, Bill?
I am. So Brendan Bouchard, by the way, has a really, really good podcast. Have you listened to that, Candace? Really, really good podcast.
I have not yet.
Yeah, well, I'll put his
Into
name
the
in the
book.
chat a little bit later because it's got a strange spelling, but I'll make sure
Here,
that
I've
you
got
have
it.
that. Okay, let's talk about the lifetime value of a client. I want to ask for some audience participation here, okay? So let me give you some statistics. The NAR, the National Association of Realtors, says, according to their research, that the average person buys their first home at what age? You'll have a guess?
26?
28.
Yeah, 28. 28. Okay, so we're gonna have a buyer. You can't see that at all, can you? Hang on. That's no better. Okay.
Right, big Bill.
Yeah, I know. Oh, here's a good one. Try to bring it even more closer. Okay, so we're gonna have a buy side at 26 or 28, I'm sorry. And then they also say that the average person lives in their property before moving to another property every how many years?
5.
5 to 7?
7.
It's a little higher than that.
9.
Yeah, it's more like 8 or 9. Let's say 9 just to keep it conservative. That number has tended to increase over the last 10 years or so. Remember, we're talking about average, right? So like somebody in their 20s, for example, is probably more like 5, I would suspect. But somebody that, let's say, has school-age kids is probably going to stick around because their kids are in school and they don't want to move them to different districts and that kind of stuff, right? So let's say that it's 9 years. So I'm going to write down the numbers at which this particular client that we're talking about is going to transact. Fair? Okay, so 28 plus 7 or 28 plus 9 is 37, right? Then 46, then 55. Then it would be 64, and let's say 73. Okay, so, and actually by the time they're this old, let's say they're going to go to 80 before they move into like a little condo or an assisted living place or something like that, or independent living place. So they're going to buy here, they're going to sell and buy here, they're going to sell and buy, 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 right? And you'll get all these deals if you stick around and if you continue to talk to them, right? Is that right? Okay, so let's talk about how much each one's worth. How many deals we got here? Oh, I'm sorry. And this last one, let's just say they sell. Okay. Just a sell. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 12 transactions. Y'all follow that? Okay. By the way, most of these are going to be increasing in home value, right? They're going to go from the $200,000, two bath condo to the 3.5 townhome to the school, the small starter home in a good community, in a good school district, to a little bit larger home in the school district, to a little bit larger home in the school district, et cetera, right? So we're most likely going to be increasing in value. I'm not even going to count that in my math, okay? So we've got 12 sales, 12 units. What's the average commission?
3%.
10,000?
Let's do a tiny bit higher than that. Let's say it's 350 as the sales price. Okay, that's the average in Metro Atlanta right now. So that is $10,500 each. You multiply that by 12 and you get how many? How much? So it's $126,000 just from that one client, just from their transactions. Okay, now let's do some more math. If I'm helping this 28-year-old amass wealth and learn the real estate business and learn how it can help them amass wealth, do you think it's fair that they'll probably do a little investing, especially if I guide them through it and I teach them how to do it successfully? Think that's fair? Just for those who haven't heard the statistic, I want to make sure you're perfectly clear on this. 75% of our country's wealth is in real estate. You are the middleman between the house and the customer. You don't know how lucky you got it. Okay. We're in a business where you should see as a solo agent, profit margins in the neighborhood of 60 to 70%. Melanie, can I put you on the spot for a second? You and your family own a painting and renovations business.
You want to know our margins?
I'm not going to ask you,
You
but
can
I'm
ask,
just
I
going to,
don't care.
your margins are probably in the neighborhood of 10 to 15%, right?
On commercial, yes. When we
Right.
worked with HOA, it's 30, residential up to, we can push up to 50 sometimes, but
Whoa.
it
Okay.
just depends.
That
But yeah,
you're running
like
you're running a
commercial,
great
10%.
business. I don't usually see it as high as 50%. That's pretty crazy, actually.
Yeah,
We're running 70% margins.
yeah, that would be great.
Do you understand that? For how many dollars you receive, how much of that becomes profit? A restaurant, for example, they're probably running like 7 to 8% margins, right? If you're running like a smooth MREA team, like you're going to see all day today, those agents are probably running profit margins between 35 and 40%. Okay. Solo agents could do double that. Okay. So we've made $126,000 by helping them buy and sell all these properties. And I think we all agree that's conservative, right? So do you think it would be reasonable during this 52-year period that they might do some real estate investing? What's reasonable for how many homes do you think they should be able to buy? I'm not talking about like a full-time real estate investor. I'm talking about just a casual person that's building wealth through real estate. What do you think is the appropriate number of homes that they could buy in this 52-year period? 8? I was going to say 1 every 5 years, which I think is pretty conservative, actually. Y'all think that's fair? Okay, so let's say that's another 10 units at 10,500. So that's 105,000. Okay, now we just got done talking about referrals and introductions, right? So if I'm helping this guy for 52 years amass wealth and, you know, take care of them and their family and their children, I mean, by this time, you're probably gonna be helping their grandkids buy too, right? How many referrals, how frequently do you think you'll get a referral from somebody who you're taking care of during this time span? 1 a year? Is that reasonable? Fabiola says 2 or 3 a year. Candace, what do you think?
I think at least 2 or 3 a year.
Okay, that's probably a little
Maybe
higher than I was
more,
going to say,
I mean-
but let's say 2 a year. That's 100 referrals you're going to get from this person over the course of 50 years. Fair? So 100 units times 10,500. That's $1,050,000. Okay. And then keep in mind, which we're not even going to add up here because I forgot how to do calculus, but if you get a referral from this guy and you take care of that guy too, then he's going to have all these transactions. He has the potential to send you a bunch of referrals, and he has the person or she has the person to make real estate investments too. And then every time you get a referral, you're building another web like this. Y'all follow that? Okay, so if we were just to simply add up this $1,050,000 or $50,000 plus $105,000 plus $126,000. And before I tell you the number, just to make sure, this is not like bogus, right? Like this is totally doable. Is that correct?
Well, except for the fact that unless you're also 28, you probably won't, you'll be 90 by the time they're 60.
Okay, I'll give you that, Ryan. I'll give you that. But
I mean,
most likely,
Down there, but like you really probably wouldn't be around for the last few transactions unless you're also very young.
I'll give you that. But we're also trying to build businesses that have that are around for the long haul, right?
Right.
So are there businesses in the world today where the founder and the owner is not alive anymore?
Yep.
Right. And they just put a bunch of talented people around them so that maybe the agent that helped on this deal, it's the child that helps on this deal. Fair point. Fair point.
Or the other part of it is, I know plenty of agents who have retired, keep their license and refer out business. I also know agents who have sold their business. They've sold their database.
Yep. By the way, your business is your database. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say you have, you ever go to like the pediatrician or whatever, and they have like a whole wall full of all those color folders, like, and that's all their like current clients or past clients or whatever. What do you think they're selling when they sell their business? They're selling the relationships. Yeah, they're selling like the chairs and stuff too, but they're selling the relationships. Make sense? So you should be thinking to yourself, what's my business worth? How strong are my relationships? How many do I have? Right? If somebody were to look at this thing and say, hey, is there a value to this? Right? I felt actually pretty proud the other day because, or yesterday, I spent an abnormal amount of time dealing with GoDaddy to resolve an email issue. And one of my domains, they said was worth like $500 because of all the hits that it's got. I mean, it's not like Google or something, but it's worth more than $20. You see what I'm saying? So what are you building that has value? Okay, so again, is there anyone that disputes any of this? Is the number I'm about to tell you, is this a legitimate number? Okay, it's $1.28 million. $1.28 million. So that person that's sitting next to you in line at the grocery store could be worth that, right? That person that you meet in an open house, if you take care of them enough and you answer their questions and you love on them and you check in and you care for their family and you ask them questions about how they're doing, right? If COVID has done anything, it has made us more interested in having personalized relationships, right? Many of us are really, really miss going to a restaurant and seeing people all over the place and you know, going out for a cup of coffee or a drink with somebody that we're in relationship without having to worry about, you know, this risk or that risk or this risk or that risk, right? People now want to have adult conversations more than ever. More than ever. I can remember last year, I was doing some work at home and I went and I wanted my wife for something. And I called out to her and I couldn't find her. So I went outstairs, or I went out the front door. She'd been talking to the kid across the street for like half an hour because it had been a long time since she had a conversation with somebody. And by the way, the kid is 10 years old, right? People are desperate to have conversations. Okay. And we are in the conversation business. Make sense? So each person that you see or that is currently in your database, if worked properly, has the potential to be worth $1.28 million. What are you guys hearing today?
That you need to not be short-sighted about your transactions, and that it's, you got to keep with them and build the client for life.
That's right.
Like,
That's
not
right.
just sell the home and disappear.
And also, if I can go one step further, you remember how Aaron Kaufman talked about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it? What if you were to tell your people just point blank, hey, the mission of my real estate business is to help people amass wealth over their lifetime through real estate, right? Such that I can have clients for life, right? The way I do that is, right, systematic communication, technology, my team, client events, all these kind of things, right? So one is the why and one is the how. Make sense? Candace, have you ever helped a buyer or seller that had previously done a real estate transaction with another realtor?
Oh, all the time.
Exactly. And when you ask that particular client, hey, how'd you find me? Like, You've bought and sold in the past. What happened, right? What happened to your agent? What do you generally hear?
They couldn't remember. They couldn't remember the agent's name, or they hadn't heard from them. And I will say this, agents are notoriously bad at follow-up and keeping in touch with their clients. That's why our 36 Touch and our fall festival makes us just, we have a piece of the missing puzzle, or missing piece of the puzzle that will give us what Bill is illustrating here.
Right. So guys, this business is changing incredibly fast. Incredibly fast. I'm going to post a article that I read a couple days ago on the chat here in a second. Let me just make a note about it. Okay, that's my system for remembering, because if I don't write it down, it ain't gonna stay in this head. Okay. Okay, so it basically said that Zillow and Open Door and these iBuyers are basically trying to just scoop up as much inventory as they can possibly have. And then they'll decide what they're going to do with it, right? Are they inflating prices intentionally so all the other homes they own are worth more? Are they after the data? Which, by the way, they're definitely after the data, right? So what if you buy a Zillow home using an agent that was referred to you by Zillow, and then Zillow says, well, just to make sure that you pay your referral fee properly, we're going to have you keep all the transactional information on our platform for your convenience, right? Which basically means for our convenience, right? I'm not trying to sound cynical. I'm just helping you open your eyes. Okay. And by the way, if you use our closing company, we'll give you a little discount. If you use our mortgage company, we'll give you a little discount, right? And so now we know all the details of all the different phases of your transaction, right? And because we've done that with literally millions of people over time, we know that if somebody buys, let's say, a townhome in Smyrna for $300,000, statistically speaking, the most common next move for them would be a 4-bed, 2.5-bath home in Dunwoody. And statistically speaking, that will happen 4 months and 3 days and 4 hours from that time period, right? So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to start pinging messages at you at that exact time, right? Or a little prior to that exact time. Oh, you want to refinance? Click here. Our math says, because we know everything about you, that we can help you save money based on today's interest rate. If you want the deal, click here. So all of these points of communication that you would be having with your people during this entire phase is now being done by someone else. And they're the ones bringing the value. Make sense? So for example, they might know that that family is going to move to Dunwoody before you do, right? Because they've got better data and they're getting better insights from the data. Guys, if you don't think this is where the business is going, oh, wake up. This is serious. This is serious stuff. If you don't engage in this, you won't last, period. Okay. So my point is that you need to be the one managing these relationships, bringing the value before they want it, or someone else will. Okay. And the only thing that's going to beat convenience and mass adoption is relationships. So if you're not intentional about building these relationships and maintaining these relationships, someone else will scoop that client and you won't get any more referrals. You won't get any more investment deals. You won't get these last handful of transactions. Does that make sense? So the more data you can derive from your customers, the better you'll know how to support them. What are you hearing? Candace, your square has lit up. You must be breathing heavy. What are you hearing today? Who wants to comment?
To me, it sounds like we need to be very, very on top of our touches and our follow-up game, and make ourselves more memorable to past clients and any people that we may be nurturing. It's kind of need to stay on top of it because we'll lose them to a big company with a large automated system and a lot of information.
That's exactly right. You guys, do you know that there is technology out there? Let's say that you're on, what's a clothing store? Give me an example of a clothing store.
H&M.
H&M. Okay, so I can't say that H&M has this definitely, but the technology is present. Okay, so you log into H&M and you got your own little account, right? So they know exactly what you've bought and when you've bought it. Okay, and so you go in and you bought the gray pants and the tan pants, but you have not yet bought the black pants or the different shades of blue pants, right? So you log on to that website because you were given some type of ad from Facebook that you clicked on because they have a great data. And you go onto the website and they know that if they present you with the blue pants rather than the tan pants, which you already own, you're more likely to buy it, right? They also know where your mouse is on the page, so they know basically where your eyes are. And if you've been on the page for long enough, guess what? Flash sale on blue pants, right? 30% off. If you're on the site for another 5 minutes and haven't bought anything, 40% off. You see what I'm saying? That's what's going to come to real estate too. The whole world's going to change with technology. And by the way, who do you think wants this money? Open Doors, Zillow, Mark Spain, etc. Right? This is a lot of money. You see what I'm saying? So this person is under attack every single day as they drive around and see billboards and hear radio ads and click on links for sponsored ads on Facebook from your competitor. When your person stumbles into an open house because they were out and they saw the balloons. When this person's at a grocery store and some other agent approaches them. Hey, when it comes to real estate, who do you trust? Huh. What was that agent's name that helped me 6 years ago? I can't remember her. Huh. I don't trust anyone. And they're like, okay, now you're in my database. Okay. So we have to, when uses this word a lot, they say you got to build a moat around your database so that everyone in your database can get everything they need within your world. Does that make sense? All right, any questions, thoughts, commentary, anything?
I just, and this doesn't exactly have to do with that, but I guess I'm amazed that with all the data that's out there, I mean, I feel like lately I spend a lot of time, you know, I'm on the internet all the time. I'm looking at I'm researching houses. I'm on different sites. I'll check out competitors, you know, I look at all of that stuff. And yet I haven't gotten any calls or solicitations. I'm just amazed that, like, what are they doing with this data? And, you know, you'd think I would show up on some sort of like home search, you know, target kind of thing. But I mean, it has nothing to do with that, but I think that's just, you know, how do they, or do they know I'm a realtor? You know, how much do they know? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, where are they, what are they doing with this and how are they using it? But I did see that article that you did about the whole thing with the, how the open doors and everything are gobbling up the homes. And that was a little disturbing.
Yeah, and you know, if you go back, that's what Amazon did. Amazon ran in the red for close to 20 years as they redefined the retail space, right? And they had plenty of money to do it because they were a public company. You follow what I'm saying? And now they put the malls out of business, and then they're going to go scoop up that real estate for pennies on the dollars, and they're going to become distribution centers for Amazon. You see what I'm saying? So you never know when you're going to hit that entry point, right? So like you'll be on Facebook today, Ryan, for example, and maybe you or let's use a different example. Let's say you are doing some research on a sofa or something, and you Google the sofa and you're looking for a particular brand and you're doing a little research, right? Then you sign on to Facebook and it's sofa, right? Here's the one you looked at. Here's the 17 competitors.
And Ryan, think about it this way. You're not using the same, you may not be you're using key search terms from a sales perspective, but not from a buy perspective, because I know I was looking at, I bought a few investment properties this summer. And as soon as I started typing in things like commercial lending, hard money, any of those types of things, I started getting ads for all of that kind of stuff popping up in my Facebook feed. as
Right, and
well. So I think
that's how smart they are about it, because I do get tons of ads in my Facebook feed for like real estate leads.
right.
Yeah.
But you're not searching. it-
Signs and business cards and, all of those types of things, but, not for people wanting me to sell my home or whatnot. So
They
like, that,
have,
they're very
they have-
sophisticated.
Yeah, they have good marketing teams that know the specific search terms that people are looking for. And those are probably not the same terms that you're using, which is why they're not targeting you.
Mhm.
Well, if I can be a little cynical here, not a lot of realtors prospect, right? So every day, just about everyone has access to the list of homes that were expired or for sale by owners, but are they calling them? Right? When I call a FSBO and they say, you're the 24th person to call me today, I'm like, that's it? There's 45,000 realtors. Are only 24 of them doing their job today? You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
The others are managed by, trillion-dollar companies that have more people on board and more systems on board. Right? So I say all that, guys, you got to understand that you're part of a bigger organization and a part of a bigger industry. And if you're not studying the industry and all the players and how the money's working and all that, you're going to get left behind. Right? Like Gary Keller said a year or two ago, he says, you will not be replaced. The agent will not be replaced by technology. However, you will be replaced by the agent who has mastered and is embracing technology. Right? So there will always be a human element to the real estate transaction. The question is, what are they going to do?
I
And how
developed
much
and
is
taught.
that worth? Right? They're marginalizing our job. So if we have 600 tasks to do in a real estate transaction and Zillow can computerize half of them, then they'll put the pressure on commissions so they don't pay 3 anymore, they pay 1.5. You see what I'm saying? Candace, what were you saying?
I was going to say very few people, I taught this class because it's something that occurred to me after I lost a client because I was a buyer's agent at the time and my company didn't have sellers, listing agents. And this couple chose another agent after working with me to buy a home. We didn't find them a home, but they said, Candace, we found somebody who can do both. And we want to work with this agent because it's just simpler for us. So what I realized is people are not loyal. People in real estate are not loyal to us. They might like us a whole bunch because they did like me. I've stayed friends with them, but people are loyal to our standards. And part of our standards are improving and keeping up with what's happening in the industry. And when we master that and we can bring that value to people, that's when they're loyal to us. So if somebody's not loyal to you and they're a friend, it's possibly because they haven't seen the value yet.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. People are loyal to standards and they're loyal to what makes their life easy and what allows them to save money, right? They could love me all I want, but if I won't budge on 3% and somebody else will do it for 1%, I might not get the job.
Right.
Right. There are things that I actually don't care one bit about who does the work. And there are things that I will gladly overpay to hire somebody to do it the right way. Right. Like it's kind of the same thing with house repairs. Maybe this is short-sighted, but I don't really care who installs the ceiling fan as long as it works. There's not much, technicality to that. But that guy, I don't really want laying tile. Right. I want a real good tile layer. I don't care one bit about who installs the ceiling fan. You see what I'm saying? Okay, any other comments?
I was just going to say that there was an agent that said something I thought was good the other day because it was just, I was thinking, I made a comment that, I've never had an agent actually call me I've never had an agent actually send me a letter, you know, like I've gotten a lot of flyers, but, you know, and I thought it just seems like it's rare that that happens. And she said, you know, I've gotten a lot of business from people that when I asked them why they called me and reached out, they said, it's because you're the only agent that ever called me. And they said, you know, I know I never answered your calls or called you back, but you left a message and you're the only one that ever tried to call me. So I thought, well, you know what, that's a good to know and a good to think about. Like when you're thinking, well, why would I call this person or do I leave a message? It's, you know what, maybe it's because no one's ever does call them. And I thought that that was a good thing to kind of keep in mind.
Right, so you can assume most likely that they also haven't called your neighbors, which means there's probably a nice opening for you to do that, right? And even if they call, by the way, they may or may not get this first deal, but if they don't have the systems in place to maintain, you know, the relationship and bring value, they're not going to get these. You see what I'm saying? So they might luck themselves into one transaction, but they're not building a business, right? That, like Ryan said, could be passed on to someone else, could be, you could partner with a younger agent, you could sell the business. There's lots of things you could do. Okay, thank you guys. I hope this was valuable. Tomorrow and the next day, we're going to be doing a mega camp kind of a review, if you will. So as you're in classes today and taking notes, what I'd love for you to do is come tomorrow ready to share the one thing from each of the classes that you took that you anticipate, or I'm sorry, let me use a different word, that you will commit to putting into your business immediately. You're not going to be able to execute 25 different things. Start with one from each class. Okay. All right. And if you
Did they do anything about that class, the closers thing? Did that ever finish? Or, I mean, that was terrible what happened to Aubrey, but I didn't know if.
I'm actually going into a meeting with him right now, so I'll ask him about that. My hunch is that they'll probably redo it.
Hope they let him try it.
Aubrey's got some influence with some of the bigwigs, so let me see if maybe he
I
can.
hope they do and redo the whole thing, and because that's just was so sad.
That was so, oh, the pain. I was like, no.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if that was his first time on the big stage. He's been on a few times, but like, you know, you work your whole career to get up there and, you know, that happens. So hopefully they'll redo it. All right. I hope this stuff was really helpful today, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.